Hey everyone, welcome. I am Dan Bova at entrepreneur.com and welcome to the first Ask Mark of 2023, the first of many. We are about to be joined by Mr. Mark Randolph, who you all know was the co-founder and founding CEO of Netflix. Mark is joining us from the middle of a snowstorm. So his audio might have some difficulties. You might hear some crackling. You might hear some repeating. So we're going to ask you to just deal with it. This is startup land, people. We problem solve and we push through problems. Right, Mark? Mark, are you with me?
I'm here, Dan, and listen, it's a special piece of software I've had embedded, which if I say something smart, automatically says it twice.
Perfect. That's great. Well, great to see you as always. Great to see the comments already flying in. We got woohoos, we got highs, we got hello from Argentina. Very cool. So thank you everyone for joining us. You know, Mark, over the break, I watched a couple of webinars and not ours, of course, but different ones. And I noticed that the host would always just ramble on for 15 minutes before just starting. So let's stop that and let's start. What do you say?
I think it's a great idea, Dan. Listen, I love hearing you ramble, so don't do anything.
I was just fishing for that.
Don't go changing to try and please me, as Paul once said.
Great. Well, so it is the first Ask Mark of 2023. So I wanted to start by kind of asking you about your outlook for 2023. What are you personally interested in? What trends do you see happening? What should people on this call be thinking about as the year kicks off?
Wow, that's actually a really interesting question, Dan, because this is certainly such a different environment than it was 12 months ago at this. When I got to say, I was actually feeling pretty positive and optimistic. And in many ways, as I mentioned, I'm looking out the window right now at this snowstorm. And in some ways, we're coming in a startup snowstorm. For the next 12 months, I think. Those of you who are already in the trenches probably feel it. Fundraising is much harder now. And the companies that are being invested in are ones where essentially they can demonstrate they don't need. And so as founders, as entrepreneurs, it kind of has changed the thing that we all need to focus on. And right now, it's not about growth. Right now is about survival. It's about saying, can I exist on the resources I have? Can I cut my down to the very, very minimum to ensure I don't need money and I can make it through this? Most companies I know are laying people off. They're trying to. This is not the time to be building for growth, but to be building for survival. And so it's a challenge. It's a challenging, but it's a critical skill. In some ways, when you go through this sort of crucible, it does make you stronger. It's a really, really good skill to learn, which is how do I steer a company through difficult times? How do I make do with less? How do I put a renewed focus on cash flow break even, or even better, profitability, and take my eye for a little bit off of growth at any cost? So I love being put into things that are uncomfortable and unfamiliar, and this is only one we haven't seen for a long time. That said, there's all kinds of interesting things going on. I love what's happening with AI. I love watching that go. That's the one category right now which have a bottomless appetite for people's capital. So there's always bright spots.
Fantastic. Well, we are getting some questions about the echo. Yes, there is an echo. Mark is dialing in from the middle of a storm. So we ask you to just bear with. There's a couple of audio hiccups, I should say. But it's all going to work out, people. It's all going to work out. So feeding off of what you just said, we had a question which is about, funding your business, and someone asking, is this a good time to take out a loan from a bank, or should I keep using my own savings? Now, obviously, that depends on how much savings somebody has, but overall, what are your thoughts on that?
Wow. I I'm of two minds. One is one of the enduring principles that I've used forever for all of my companies and even other people's that I've advised is something called OPM. And I always want to use OPM. Uh, and OPM is not opium. OPM stands for other people's money. Uh, I am investing the more valuable resource, which is my time. It all on the line. And I usually have put some of my own money in. And so, as much as I can, I want to rely on other people's money. So, to that end, you can get a loan to help you grow. Fantastic. The problem with loans, it's a weird quirk, I know, but they want the money back. And depending on the terms, that can end up being very, very challenging for you, especially if, for example, you don't anticipate having positive cash flow for a long time. Now, all of a sudden, in addition to the cash flow requirements of running your business, you have the cash flow requirements of making debt payments, of making scheduled principal payments. It gets tough. So it's obviously there's no one size fits all answer here. It's going to depend on your circumstances and housing. As Dan asked, how much personal resources you have. But knowing very, very little, I'd say to the degree you can get a bank to come in with you. And of course, I'll mention it. You didn't bring it up, but an even better one is, of course, equity, which does not need to get paid back. And so I hope you are asking the question about debt. Equity is not available to you, as opposed to because you're concerned about dilution or about giving any of my company away. Believe me, you'll have plenty left for yourself if you're successful. Equity is much better because they're in it with you for the long haul. You're not going to have those repayment requirements. So, in order, equity raising first, then debt second, and then funding it yourself third. And this does not apply if you're in the very early stage of validation. We're trying to show they're there. If you don't have product market fit, do it yourself. Don't spend any money. Not a validation hack. Do it cheap.
Great. And a follow-up to that for everyone who's watching, who's obviously a fan of Marc Randolph's. Marc, you were one of our investors on the show Entrepreneur Elevator Pitch, and we got to watch you in action, getting pitched to, reacting to it live. And always loved, you always had a unique way of looking at the pitch you just heard, at the person. But for a lot of these people who are going to be asking someone for investment or asking someone to partner up for them, what are the kinds of things that you like to hear when someone's either asking for to see if you want to get on board with something, if you want to invest your time or your money in it?
There's two important things that I'm looking for. Number one, the most thing is I want to hear about traction. I want to hear what you have learned. I don't want to hear how great your idea is. I don't want to hear about how amazing the problem, and I absolutely don't want to see your revenue projections, which miraculously in year 3 go dramatically up and to the right. Tell me what you've learned. If you can sit down or stand up and say, "Here, tried, here's what I've learned," that is a huge positive for me. And the more detailed, the better. I've learned what it costs to acquire a customer. I've learned my lifetime value, learned my churn rate. I've learned what they like and what they don't like. Because it tells me you understand this business and that you're not basing it on I believe, you're basing it on the dose. The second thing I'm looking at is you. Uh, so much of startups is uncertainty. No matter what you say is going to happen, no matter what you think is going to happen, It's not going to happen. Something different's going to happen, which means I have to have confidence that you will have the persistence and the creativity to see it through. You'll be willing to pivot. You'll be willing to drop preconceptions and go in a new direction. And I want to pick. So don't be someone you're not. Don't pretend to be something. Don't try and sex what I'm looking for. Be yourself and let me see that. Because finally, what you're betting on is the person. You're not betting on the idea. So if I don't see that or feel that, you've really lost before you.
Great. Sorry, you the audio dropped out there for 1 second, but what I want to say, and this isn't so much a question, an observation, is that you talk a lot about having that grit and that drive, and you're a living embodiment of that right now because when we started this off, we knew there were some technical problems, and you were just like, let's just do it. Like a lot of people would have just said, "All right, let's cancel it and we'll do it again on a better day." So I appreciate that, and I think everyone in the chat appreciates that. So just wanted to throw that out there.
And I thank everyone for bearing with us. But as Dan said, podcasts, streaming, startups, it's unpredictable. And so, you do what you can. And if it's driving you crazy with the echo, then, drop off and back in a month and be better then.
Now,
But don't stick around.
Did you say drop off or go to hell? Because you dropped out there for a second. So
That's the other software I have, Dan. It's
yeah.
it's automatically. I want a delay that bleeps me if I offend him.
So I did want to ask you a sort of avenue of entrepreneurship or business ownership that we haven't talked about much on here. But today, entrepreneur.com, we have put up this year's Franchise 500, which ranks the top 500 franchises, that we've rated based on their success and ease of running and the support you get. So I wonder if you had any thoughts on franchises as a first step into business ownership.
Certainly. Franchises are a very different beast, but it's not. It's different, and I won't say one's better, not better. What's wonderful about a franchise is they've figured it out. Ideally, they've got product market fit. They know who the right customer is. They know how to attract that customer and they know what product to offer to that customer. And hopefully, the franchise has developed the playbook for you to execute on. Now, I'm not saying you can just phone it in because obviously you have to adapt the playbook to your specific market, your specific locale, your specific customer type. You do have to go through all those stages, but a huge piece of it has been taken off your plate. And so if that's what you're looking for, it's a fantastic way to get started. You still do have to run your own business. You have to take that responsibility for the buck stopping with you. You've got to hire and train great people. You've got to again, a playbook to your own specific market. But it does free you up from going through that other big, huge piece of entrepreneurship, which is finding product market fit with an idea and saying, how do I develop a product and find a customer and match the two of them? And so if that's the part that thrills you, entrepreneurship's not the right path. But if you don't care about, want to jump into something where someone has already done that hard work, then a franchise is a fantastic, have your own business and have a huge part of the risk taken out of it. And I actually love what Entrepreneur has done because certainly one of the big risks about buying into a franchise is this uncertainty about just how trustworthy is this? Just how confident can I be that if I put down the money, get the franchise up and run it, it's actually going to behave the way I've expected to. So having third parties which can go in and help you evaluate what are the best franchises to buy into is a real positive thing.
That's great. And, anyone who's interested, you can check that out at entrepreneur.com and look for Franchise 500. That whole trustworthy thing has me thinking, as people are just starting out in particular, we don't have a network of people that we work with. Oh, I've got a great person who does this. I've got a great person who does that. How do you kind of vet people that you haven't worked with before? How do you get a sense if they're on the up and up? And of course, in the news every day, it seems like there's some other big scheme that's stealing millions of dollars from people. How do you avoid that?
We could spend 6 or 7 of these live streams talking about nothing, but it's an incredibly interesting topic, and you can always get better and better at it. Spence, a few tips. Number one is when I do it, I spend a tremendous amount of time about what I want that person to accomplish. And I'm going to emphasize that. I'm asking myself, what do I want this person to accomplish? I do not spend time saying, I don't start by saying, what have they done? What current job are they in? What's their education? Are they I don't care about any of that stuff at the beginning. It's purely about what do I expect them to accomplish? And I will actually, my friend Patty McCord, who ran HR at Netflix for all this, she used to say, what I want you to do is picture a year and a half to 3 out. And what I want you to picture this person you're hiring, what they've done, they created for the company. What have they done in the role that you wanted them in? Now, I want you to create a movie which goes from today to that point. And I want to know what the key scenes are. What decisions did they make? What were they doing each day? And get this real picture of what you want them to accomplish and how you expect them to accomplish it. Once you're there, then you can back into saying, well, what kind of background and experience and skills would I want some have to be able to achieve those things? Which is very different than what job have they had in the past or what's their education level. I'm being very specific. I want them to have as a skill or a background to be able to accomplish the things I want. I will put together a team of people to interview them entirely to help me evaluate, do we think this person has the skills and experience to accomplish those things? I'm not saying, oh my gosh, our senior VP of sales is going to have to meet this person. I don't care what your role in my company is. I'm purely going to put together this team based on evaluation. So, for example, if I said hypothetically, I think it'd be really helpful for this person's job if they really stood about how to, I don't know, set up a Discord, an idea about that. I'd find someone in the company or outside who had done it times and knew the questions to ask to evaluate whether it works or not. Anyway, last piece, and I know I'm breaking up badly. It's unfortunate. I'm sorry. Is that when I find someone, I keep them. I keep them around. I don't necessarily mean working for me, but I'll go back and get them. I'll do a new company 3 years later, and I'll go steal them from wherever they are. Once you find people who work, you want to keep it.
That's excellent. That's excellent. And it's funny. Whenever we've gone out, you seem to always try to lose me. So I'm not sure what that's that's all about. We did have one final question, which is interesting. It's just one word. They just wrote in the chat here, money. How do you respond?
Helpful.
Okay.
That's interesting. That's my one word answer is helpful. Yeah. But I'll tell you, it's not panacea. It's not happiness. Listen, don't get me wrong. All things being equal, it's better to have more than less. And that counts whether you're a person or whether you're a company. The dangerous thing is thinking that is the same scale as success or the same scale as happiness, because they're not. They're different scales. You've got to achieve happiness, all kinds of different things, and having more money is not going to make you more happy. Listen, I'm not saying if you're broke and you're living on the street and you have no health care and you can't eat, yeah, money does buy you happiness. We're not talking about that. We're talking about these once you have these basic sustenance things, you've got to figure it out yourself. Same with business success. Pouring more money on it can make things worse rather than better. So those of you who were there at the stream heard my comment that said, yes, this year is going to be really hard because money is going to be very hard to come by. But it's a good skill to develop, is to realize that can't be papered over with money, and you better learn how to solve them without it.
Well, that's awesome. And wow, I mean, I gave you one word, and what an answer. That's fantastic. Well, Marc, thank you so much for doing this, especially in the middle of a storm. We always appreciate it, and especially appreciate it today. I'm going to ask you one last question because this just rolled in, and I thought this was interesting. So someone is asking if it's wise to start a business while completing their degree, and I wonder if you could talk more to is there any like perfect time where everything's done and now I can concentrate on this one thing?
Wow. So Dan, I have heard every single possible reason for why people are unwilling to start. And that's one of them. I'm still going to school, or I can't raise money. I can't founder. I need to learn how to code. Blah, 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 blah. I mean, there's 100 of them. The best time to start is now. And I would argue the best time to start a business is when you're getting your degree. I mean, you've already solved, you obviously, if you're getting your degree, you're not starving. You're obviously have a way to live. So yeah, do it on the side. Rule number one, if you're looking for product market fit, don't quit your day job. Figure it out in your basement, in your spare time, on the weekends. Once you have some sense that actually might work, yeah, then you may want to begin investing more, both money and time. But while you're going to school is a great time to start a business. But the more important thing is if you have an idea, how to do something, if you can see this great path, then don't let anything stop you. That's the real answer, Dan. That's kind of a great way to end it too.
Yes, I think that is a great way to end it. Thanks, Marc, so much. Thanks for everyone for your great questions and for hanging in there with us. We really appreciate it. We are going to be doing this many times again, so be sure to be on the lookout for that. So from Entrepreneur, thank you. And Marc, I hope you get to bomb those hills that are getting covered in snow right now.
I'm on it. But listen, I apologize to everybody for the audio quality, but we'll fix it up for next time. I promise. But thanks much, Dan.